it, Harriet. We should have had all this done before you got here.
Oh, don't be silly. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
They were pioneers of the sitcom, a cornerstone of television history that defined comedy for a generation. On screen, they were Fred and Ethel Mertz, the bickering but ultimately devoted landlords and best friends to Lucy and Ricky Ricardo. Their chemistry was electric, their timing impeccable. They were the perfect comedic foils, the grounded, grumbling counterpoint to Lucy's zany schemes. Millions of viewers welcomed them into their homes week after week, believing in the cantankerous but loving bond they portrayed. But the laughter that echoed from the television sets of 1950s America was a masterful illusion, a testament to an almost unbelievable level of professionalism. Because behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. It was a story not of friendship, but of a deep and abiding loathing. Vivian Vance, the actress who brought Ethel Mertz to life, utterly despised her on-screen husband, William Frawley. It wasn't a simple dislike or a clash of personalities. It was a profound and lasting hatred that began on their very first day and festered for years, ending only in death. The reasons for this legendary feud were a toxic cocktail of wounded pride, personal insults, professional jealousy, and an unbridgeable gap in age and temperament. So, what really happened between these two television icons? What were the shocking reasons behind a feud so intense that it shaped their careers and left an indelible, if invisible, mark on one of the most beloved shows of all time? To understand the depth of the animosity, we have to go back to the very beginning, to the moment the world's most famous television couple was formed, and one of its most bitter real-life feuds was born. Vivian Vance and William Frawley played one of TV's most iconic couples, Fred and Ethel Mertz. Their on-screen chemistry was undeniable. But behind the laughter, there was a deep, mutual hatred. The shocking reasons for their feud stemmed from a 22-year age gap and a vicious war of personal insults that lasted for years. So what really happened? The story begins not with a friendly handshake, but with a single, devastating comment that would set the stage for nearly a decade of bitterness and resentment. A comment that William Frawley happened to overhear, and one he would never, ever forgive. Before "I Love Lucy" became a cultural phenomenon, its cast were all working actors at different stages of their careers. Lucille Ball was a well-known actress, but she was determined to make her mark in the new medium of television and, more importantly, to work with her real-life husband, Desi Arnaz. Desi, a savvy musician and budding producer, had a vision for a show that would change the landscape of entertainment. Vivian Vance, born Vivian Roberta Jones, was a respected stage actress from Kansas. She had honed her craft in the theater, valued meticulous rehearsal, and was a trained performer with a deep respect for the art of acting. She was in her early 40s, a vibrant and attractive woman who had dreams of stardom, not of being relegated to the role of a frumpy sidekick. On the other side of the equation was William Frawley. A veteran of vaudeville and a character actor with over 100 films to his name, Frawley was a known quantity in Hollywood. He was also known for his curmudgeonly personality and a significant drinking problem, which had made many studios wary of hiring him. At 64 years old, his career was in a slump. He was a man from an older school of entertainment, gruff, pragmatic, and not one for the niceties of a detailed rehearsal process. He was also a man who desperately needed a break. When he heard that his acquaintance, Lucille Ball, was casting her new show, he made a call. Desi Arnaz, aware of Frawley's reputation but also of his immense talent, took a chance on him. He laid down the law: if Frawley was late to work, intoxicated, or unable to perform more than once due to his drinking, he was out. Frawley, seeing the opportunity of a lifetime, agreed. The pieces were falling into place. Lucy and Desi were set as the Ricardos. William Frawley was cast as their landlord, Fred Mertz. The only remaining piece was Fred's wife, Ethel. Desi Arnaz had seen Vivian Vance perform in a play and was impressed by her talent. And so, the 42-year-old Vivian Vance was brought in and offered the role of Ethel Mertz, the on-screen wife to the 64-year-old William Frawley. This is where the fairy tale of television magic meets the harsh reality of human ego. The feud that would become legendary reportedly began almost the instant Vance learned who her co-star would be. According to numerous accounts, including that of Jess Oppenheimer's son, Greg Oppenheimer, Vance was openly dismayed. She looked at the gruff, balding man who was 22 years her senior and was appalled. How could anyone possibly believe that she, a lovely woman in the prime of her life, would be married to him? She voiced her displeasure, reportedly complaining to Lucille Ball and others on set. The most damaging remarks, however, were the ones she made within earshot of Frawley himself. She was heard referring to him as "that old man" and, most famously, quipping, "No one will believe I'm married to that old coot." In another version of the story, she declared he looked old enough to be her father. For William Frawley, a man from the tough, respect-driven world of vaudeville, this was a profound humiliation. He had finally landed the biggest role of his career, a chance to secure his legacy and financial future. To be immediately dismissed and ridiculed by his younger co-star was a blow to his pride that he could not and would not absorb. He was deeply offended. From that moment forward, a line was drawn in the sand. He never forgave her for that initial comment. The working relationship had been poisoned before the first scene was even shot. What was meant to be a fictional, comedic marriage on screen had begun as a real-life, undeclared war off-screen. The initial wound, inflicted by Vivian Vance's comments about their age gap, never healed. Instead, it festered, creating a toxic on-set atmosphere that was cleverly masked by their brilliant performances. William Frawley, having been publicly slighted, didn't turn the other cheek. He retaliated. And so began a full-out insult war, a campaign of psychological jabs and on-screen revenge that became a defining feature of their relationship. Frawley, a seasoned Hollywood veteran, knew how to play the game. He couldn't refuse to work with Vance, but he could make her time on set miserable. He began to actively suggest lines for his character, Fred, that were direct insults aimed at Vance's character, Ethel. These weren't just the typical bickering lines of a sitcom couple, they were personal, cutting, and designed to hit Vance where it hurt. According to Greg Oppenheimer, Frawley would pitch insults that characterized Ethel as having a figure like a sack of doorknobs, or other similarly derogatory descriptions. The writers, perhaps finding the real-life animosity a source of comedic inspiration, often incorporated these jabs into the scripts. Every time Fred Mertz called Ethel a fat old sow, or made a crack about her appearance, the live studio audience would roar with laughter, completely unaware that the sting of the insult was very real for the actress. Vance, for her part, didn't just absorb the punishment. She gave as good as she got on camera. She would lean into the insults, calling her husband Old Fat Freddy, and other names that played on Frawley's age and physique. Their on-screen bickering, which viewers found so endearing and hilarious, became their primary outlet for their genuine dislike. The scripts for I Love Lucy became their battlefield, and the dialogue their weapon of choice. Each barb traded between Fred and Ethel was layered with a subtext of pure animosity. The hostility, however, wasn't confined to the scripted pages. Off-camera, Frawley's insults allegedly became far more vicious and vulgar. He was a man known for his short temper and crude language, and Vance was often the target. One of the most shocking accounts comes from Tim Considine, who co-starred with Frawley on his later show, My Three Sons. Considine recounted a story where a high-ranking military officer was visiting the set and asked Frawley what Vivian Vance was really like. Without missing a beat, in front of guests, Frawley reportedly delivered a stunningly coarse insult, calling her a miserable CT. This wasn't a one-off incident. Frawley made his feelings about Vance painfully clear to anyone who asked. He once famously quipped, "She's one of the finest girls to come out of Kansas, but I often wish she'd go back there." This constant barrage of insults, both on-screen and off, took a toll. While Vance and Frawley maintained their professionalism, the feud defined their interactions. They would show up, hit their marks, deliver their lines with impeccable timing, and then retreat to their separate corners, often without speaking a word to each other once the cameras stopped rolling. The audience saw two masters of their craft creating comedy gold. The cast and crew, however, saw something much darker: two people trapped in a professional partnership, forced to create magic together while nursing a mutual hatred. Beyond the initial insult and the subsequent war of words, the animosity between Vivian Vance and William Frawley was fueled by a fundamental clash of personalities and professional ethics. They were products of two different worlds of entertainment, and their approaches to work were as far apart as their ages. Vivian Vance was a classically trained actress who cut her teeth in the theater. For her, acting was a craft to be honed and respected. She believed in the power of rehearsal, of analyzing a script, and of working collaboratively to build a scene. She was known for her attention to detail and her desire to get things just right. This meticulous approach was the core of her identity as a performer. William Frawley, on the other hand, was a product of the rough-and-tumble world of vaudeville. His training ground was a raucous stage where performers had to be quick on their feet. He relied on instinct and famously preferred to learn his lines at the last minute. He was known for his ability to master his lines after just one reading, but this also came with a resistance to extensive rehearsal, which he saw as an unnecessary delay. This stark contrast in work styles was a constant source of tension. Vance's desire for detailed rehearsal likely grated on Frawley's impatient nature, while Frawley's last-minute preparation would have seemed unprofessional to Vance. Furthermore, Frawley's well-known heavy drinking was another point of contention. While Desi Arnaz's initial warning had largely kept Frawley's behavior in check during filming, his lifestyle was antithetical to Vance's disciplined professionalism. She reportedly saw him as a has-been who couldn't stay off the booze, and found him generally difficult to work with. His gruff, curmudgeonly demeanor wasn't just an act for the character of Fred Mertz, it was a genuine reflection of his personality. Their personalities were simply incompatible. Vance, who valued a stable, professional environment, found Frawley's abrasive and often unpredictable nature to be deeply unsettling. Frawley, a man who harbored a misogynistic worldview, likely saw Vance's attempts at collaborative work as an unwelcome intrusion. This clash wasn't just about preference, it was about respect. Vance felt Frawley didn't respect the craft, and Frawley likely felt Vance didn't respect his decades of experience. They were oil and water, forced into the same bottle week after week. The story of this legendary feud is a powerful reminder that what we see on screen is often a carefully crafted illusion. The ability of these two actors to create such a beloved and believable couple, all while despising each other, is a testament to their incredible talent. If you find these behind-the-scenes stories of classic television as fascinating as we do, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss our next deep dive into the hidden dramas of Hollywood's golden age. And let us know in the comments below, does knowing about the feud change how you see Fred and Ethel Mertz? We'd love to hear your thoughts. For 6 seasons of I Love Lucy, and subsequent hour-long specials, Vivian Vance and William Frawley maintained their fragile, hate-fueled truce for the sake of the show. But as the show prepared to end its run, an opportunity arose that would cement their feud for eternity. It was the point of no return, the moment where Vivian Vance held all the power, and she used it to deliver the final blow to their professional partnership. CBS and Desilu Studios were keenly aware of the immense popularity of the show's characters. As the Lucy-Desi comedy hour was winding down, they began to look for ways to continue the magic. The most logical idea was a spin-off. And the most obvious candidates for a new show were the Mertzes. The concept was simple, a sitcom titled Fred and Ethel, or The Mertzes, which would follow the lives of TV's favorite landlords. Desi Arnaz pitched the idea directly to his 2 supporting stars. For William Frawley, the offer was a godsend. He was approaching his mid-70s, and the prospect of top billing in his own network series was the opportunity of a lifetime. It was a chance for a new chapter in his career and financial security. Despite his intense dislike for Vivian Vance, the lucrative potential of the project was too great to ignore. He accepted the offer immediately and enthusiastically. The decision then fell to Vivian Vance. She was presented with the same golden opportunity. But for Vance, the offer was a nightmare. The thought of being contractually bound to William Frawley, without the buffer of Lucy and Desi, was utterly intolerable. She had spent the better part of a decade enduring his presence and weathering his insults. The idea of spending several more years building an entire show around their dynamic was unthinkable. Her refusal was swift and absolute. No amount of money could change her mind. Her primary motivation was her deep-seated hatred for her co-star. Vance's decision was the nail in the coffin for their professional relationship. For Frawley, it was the ultimate betrayal. He saw her refusal as a personal attack that cost him the biggest opportunity of his late career. He was reportedly infuriated, believing she had selfishly deprived him of a second act in the spotlight. The spin-off never happened. Their final scenes together would be their last. The feud, once managed behind the scenes, had now spilled over to have massive professional consequences. They were finally, and permanently, done with each other. After the curtain fell on the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, Vivian Vance and William Frawley went their separate ways. Frawley, despite the sting of the rejected spin-off, quickly landed on his feet. He was cast as the housekeeper Bub O'Casey on the hit sitcom My Three Sons, a role that would keep him in the public eye for another 5 years. Vance would reunite with Lucille Ball on The Lucy Show, though her role was different, and she made sure her contract allowed her a sense of independence. Their paths rarely crossed, but the bitterness remained, particularly on Frawley's side. There was no reconciliation, no mellowing with age. The feud reached its poignant conclusion on March 3, 1966. William Frawley, then 79 years old, was walking down Hollywood Boulevard when he collapsed and died of a massive heart attack. The news of his death spread quickly. Across town, Vivian Vance was reportedly having dinner when she was informed that her longtime nemesis was gone. Her reaction has become a legendary piece of Hollywood lore. Upon hearing the news, she allegedly raised her glass and declared, "Champagne for everyone." While the story's authenticity is debated, its persistence speaks volumes about how well-known their feud was. For Vance, Frawley's death may have been a moment of final release from the man she had loathed for so long. Today, the story of Vivian Vance and William Frawley is a complex chapter in television history. It stands as a powerful testament to the strange alchemy of acting. How could two people who genuinely despised each other create a portrait of a married couple so authentic that it has captivated audiences for over 70 years? The answer lies in their immense and undeniable professionalism. Despite the personal insults, the clashing work ethics, and the deep-seated resentment, when the cameras rolled, they put it all aside. They showed up, hit their marks, and delivered performances that were nothing short of brilliant. Their legacy is twofold: the sad story of a feud that never healed, and the timeless, joyous comedy of Fred and Ethel Mertz. The fact that they could coexist is perhaps the greatest magic trick they ever pulled off, creating something that has outlived them both. Rerun after rerun, their work continues to bring joy to millions. In the end, that is a legacy that proved to be more enduring than hate.